Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Live Well podcast. I have not been this excited for a guest in a long time. When I had the idea to invite this guest onto the podcast, I squealed with excitement because she is someone that I learn from, which for me to learn from someone that means something very special. She just has so much insight. She is a master in what she does. She provides so much value. She's an expert in human design, in consciousness, and all the things. I'm going to let her introduce herself. Christy, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me, Liv. This is so exciting. I'm seriously so excited to be here. And I felt the same exact way. When you invited me onto your show, I was like, oh my God, this is a sacral yes for me. So I was like, yes, please, let's do it. So, yes, I am a human design business strategy alignment coach. And a lot of what I do is around consciousness on a deeper level. So, I am a 5-1 mini gen. And a lot of my work is centered around helping people find deeper levels of alignment through human design, but also through other systems involving consciousness. And it's really exciting because a lot of what I do is helping people create abundance and create freedom and grow businesses and things like that. And I'm also starting another side of the business that's more for people who just want to align to their human design who don't necessarily have businesses. So it's very, very cool.
So, before I ask you the first question, what are your sun signs? Because I feel like I know your human design, but I don't think I've ever known like your sun, moon, and rising.
Oh my gosh, no, I don't think I need to know yours as well. So I am a Leo sun, a Scorpio moon, and a Sagittarius rising.
Of course, as you say Leo, I'm like, oh right, I know your birthday is like coming up, so that makes sense with Leo. I'm also a Sag rising and a Sag sun and a Taurus moon.
Ooh, okay, that makes so much sense because you're so grounded. I can feel the Taurus.
But yeah, then I have like the fire too, like to
That's
like really balance it out.
it's
Oh my
so
god, you're a
fun.
Leo. Of course you're a Leo. I mean, that makes sense. Fire and fire too. Okay, I love it.
I know. I love Sagittarius energy. It's so fun. It's like let's go on an adventure at every given moment in time.
I love it. So, what got you into human design? I believe like this was something you had like a corporate job before, then you
Yeah.
discovered human design. Like, how did that whole unfolding come for you?
Yeah, so I found human design in a really cool way. It was so funny because I had really, really desired to quit corporate America. Like I was getting the nudge from my body of like, you can't do this. You have a great job, but you literally can't sustain this for another like 40 years based on, the traditional corporate outlook that people have. And so I was like, I need to start my own business. I need to get out of corporate America because this is unsustainable. I was so burnt out at that point and I was exhausted. And so what I did is I created a virtual assistant business. And so I went into being a virtual assistant. And as great as it was, like I was making income and I had quit the 9 to 5 or the 7 to 5, I was still in this place where my consciousness was recreating the same scenario. So it was like I
Mm.
went from working a 7 to 5 to like a 7 to 7, right? Like I was working all day long, every single day. And I was like, okay, this isn't even worth it. If this is what business is, if I'm going to work all day long, this isn't worth it. So, what ended up happening is one of my clients who I was a virtual assistant for, she did human design. And I was like, oh, I had never heard of human design. And I thought it was really cool. And I'm like a 5-1. So, I love the information. So, I wanted to dive in and I started diving in and learning more about human design. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. I'm a manifesting generator. Oh my gosh, this is so cool. I'm a sacral authority. And I started diving in and I was like, people are using this to change their lives, but my life wasn't changing, right? Because I was so
Mm.
intellectual about it that I was like, oh, okay, I understand the high frequencies. I understand the low frequencies. I got certified in human design, but it hadn't really changed anything for me. And then one day it kind of clicked where I was like, embodiment means bringing it into the being. Intellectualization isn't going to change anything. And so the second that I brought it into my being, my life started changing in a really massive and rapid way. And it was really uncomfortable. Like I had to, it wasn't just like, oh, align to your human design and everything fell into place. It was like, oh, you were saying yes to a lot of things that were no's. Oh, you actually don't like being a virtual assistant. You've been meaning to be a coach for a very long time. You've just been afraid to claim that. Oh, that you're working with some clients who are misaligned. Oh, you're in a misaligned relationship. And it was very like, boom, 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 lots of hard decisions. But then all of a sudden, I remember one day where everything was like done and I had only worked 4 hours. And this was the first day where I was like, oh my God, human design has changed my life. I'm actually here. I love all of my clients. I love what I'm doing. And I have space. And the first time I had space, it freaks me out. Like I remember crying that day because I did like this arts and craft thing for some hats on my wall. And then I was done and I was like, what do I do? Because I was so used to just go, 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 going. And fast forward to now, human design is like literally the foundation of most of what I do.
I love that you brought in the embodiment because I think sometimes we can, like you said, intellectualize or we find out the things about human design, but it's not just about finding it out. Like that to me is like step 0.1. Like now you know it. Okay, now it's about implementing and actually like deconditioning and applying it to get into alignment, which I think can be for a lot of people like the missing piece. It's like, all right, now that you know this, are you actually applying it? Like as a projector, as a 5-1, as a generator, whatever you are, and your lines and I won't even go into gates because I don't even know gates, but at least like the main things. You get what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's knowing it and then there's actually making that sometimes hard decisions and implementing it, especially when it's not maybe the way you've been brought up or the way you've been being up until now or the way that people are around you and really stepping into that and like learning what it takes and even what you said about the safety of like oh I embodied it and then it was like oh wait, what do I do now? So there's even the element of like, okay, I embodied it. You got to also keep embodying it. It's like a continuous process, right? To stay in
Exactly.
alignment. It's not just making that decision once. It's then when that opportunity comes, do you stay in alignment or do you go back into like the lower frequency version or this or that? So I just love what you said.
Oh, it's so cool. And it's exactly right because one of the things I have noticed, you're exactly right. It's the 0.1 step of learning it. And then what most people do, and I think this is actually a valuable stage, and this is a stage that everybody goes through in human design, where they start to use it as a permission slip. And they're like, oh my gosh, this makes sense, you know? And they're like understanding, like, this is the thing about me. And oh my gosh, this is why I am the way I am. But my work is about graduating out of permission slip energy and taking responsibility for using human design to create our desires. And you can't actually create your desires and step into a new reality if you continue to use it as a permission slip.
You know I love you for this reason. You know we can speak all day long about this kind of stuff. I have never once been like, no, I can't because I'm a projector. Or like, no, I can't because like I'm a 5 line, so people project onto me. So like I can't. Like
Yes.
and people start to use it as a limitation versus for their expansion. I see a lot of that, or like using it as an excuse, using it as a limitation versus like actually learning how to harness it and how to leverage it of the embodiment versus using it as a limitation. I feel like it sometimes becomes another thing, kind of like astrology. Oh, I'm a Sag to this. Like I'm a Sag, but I'm very loyal and committed. So, there's
Yes.
higher frequencies and lower frequencies, as I'm sure there is in human design,
There
and it's
are.
about using it like you said as expansion, not as permission slips or like limitations.
It's exactly that. And it really brings to point, and it's funny because you will see a direct reflection of how embodied you are in the highest frequency of your human design based on your results, based on your life. You can look at your life point blank and be like, oh, how embodied am I in the highest frequency based on the results that I have? And a lot of people continue to see the same results that they have because what actually needs to be addressed isn't just like, oh, learn about human design. It's how they use systems in general. Because most people will use systems from a place of limitation. Like when we think about even like religious systems, a lot of people are in religious systems and then they go into like educational systems and then they go into more spiritual systems such as human design and astrology. But the way that most systems have been used is to create limitations and put people in boxes, so they bring that conditioning into human design. And then all of a
Mm.
sudden, they wonder why some people are making so much money and so much business expansion and so much alignment and being called to higher level things. But they're using human design and they're like, I'm still stuck. I'm not seeing the changes. I'm not seeing the expansion. And oftentimes, people have to do a deeper inquiry of where do I like the limitations? Where do I like the box? Where do I actually not want to be uncomfortable? Because expansion inherently means you're going to challenge your ego protection mechanisms, because safe is same to the ego. And so when people don't understand that alignment sometimes does mean discomfort, they're actually self-protecting from their expansion, acting like they're expanding.
Oh, I love that. I talk about the whole like nervous system protecting you to be safe. And I like how you bring in this like human design element because it's just like another way that your system is doing it through this avenue and through these things that we discover about ourselves.
Yeah.
Now, would you say like the energy types, if someone's like focusing on getting in alignment, first look at like projector, Manny, Jen, like those are the big things, and then work to numbers. And then I know there's also gates, kind of like go through that way. Cause it
Yes.
can be, I'm sure, like very overwhelming. I don't even go into gates because I'm like, I don't, that's a lot. I'm just nailing the 5-1 self-projected projector. Oh, because there's an authority too, and your authority.
Yeah.
So would you say that like that is a good, I guess, order to go in, or would you say like your authority matters more than your energy type or your profile lines or
Totally. So, and this is one of the things that I really recommend for people. Do not go down the human design rabbit hole right when you learn about human design, because you will actually skip a lot of the embodiment and you'll go straight into intellectualization, right? And so,
Mm.
what I really recommend is practicing it and being it, and starting with your energy type, starting with your strategy, and starting with your authority. Once you go into those things and embody those things, it's funny because a lot of the other places that you can go into your chart and starting to learn about, like your conscious Jupiter, and learning about your profile, and learning about all of your gates and centers and channels and all of those things, if you go back to strategy, authority, energy type every single time, you will find deeper levels of alignment. Those nuances give you deeper awarenesses, but even in those deeper awarenesses, as you go deeper into the chart, still you are being led by your type, strategy, and authority. So that's really where I recommend that people start. And there's a lot of free like softwares online where you go in and edit or enter your information, and it will give you your chart. And that's where you can really start to look at, what does it mean to be a projector, or what does it mean to be a manifester, and really starting to go, okay, what is my strategy and what is my authority?
Now to clarify, maybe I'm just having like a brain pause moment. Strategies, what again? Like what are the strategies?
So the strategy is how you really interact with the world. So for example, like if you are a manifester, you're going to be interacting with the world by informing. Your strategy
Mm,
as a projector is going to be waiting for the invitation, those pieces,
gotcha,
right?
gotcha.
And so your authority, if you're self-projected, which you are, then you're going to be really moving with that. So that self-projected authority, and your authority is really how you know what's right for you and what isn't.
Okay, that makes sense. Now I remember about the strategy. And that reminds me of a limitation because I've had projectors come to me and
Mm-hmm.
be like, well, I can't do this in business because I need to wait for the invitation. So I can't sell until someone invites me. I was like, the world is my invitation. The gaps that I see, that is my invitation. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I've interpreted it,
Yeah,
is that
you're
that's my
so right.
invitation. Okay.
Yep. That's exactly it. I'm like, how are you going to? And I actually have, it's so funny because I've been talking about this in my content recently, because I'm shifting to projectors as I get ready to launch a projector program. But it's exactly that. If we're waiting in the corner for an invitation, the invitations aren't going to come. We actually have to go and create the invitations by following you see what you're passionate about, because you can't be seen if you're silently sitting in a corner, right? And so there's a lot of like limitations in the way that people perceive these different pieces of human design.
I will say, if you're not following Christy, I am obsessed with your human design content. Like the way that you speak to human design and business, I have never someone like describe it and see exactly. Anytime you talk about it, like a projector, a 5 line, a 1 line, I'm like, yes, 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 this is exactly it. When you did your training on the defined and undefined heart, I was like, as a defined heart, I was like, yup, 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 yup. So like, even if you are following someone else in human design, you need Christy in your life because you are just, I think you have an expertise in like the way you see it and the way you're able to describe it, that even if from someone who's consumed lots of human design content, you simplify it, right?
Oh,
Like
thank
you're
you.
able to really showcase. So everyone, go follow that. Would you say, like when it comes to business, maybe if we could go into like for the 4 ones, I don't really have any reflectors, so let's keep it like we can leave reflectors out of it. The big things that you see either affecting it or like the big limitation for each of them, kind of give us like a, oh, projectors is probably being seen, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
You'll let me know, but do
Yes.
you get what I
Okay.
mean?
So let's go into each one. I'm gonna just start with generators because gens and mani gens are most of the population, and then we'll kind of go down. So when it comes to generators in business, like here's the thing, a lot of generators are wearing masks, and a lot of
Mm.
them are actually being co-opted in the energy. The really cool thing about being a gen or a mani gen is you have this defined sacral, which is an energy center, and so you have a lot of energy to create, but so many gens and mani gens are being co-opted in their energy, moving from shoulds, have to, force, and pressure. And so when they're moving in that way, what happens is they're not actually creating for themselves, so they're in a degenerative state within the sacral, which means they're not getting the intuition, they're not getting the ideas, they're not feeling lit up in
Mm.
business. And so when they're moving from this place of really entertaining the nose, which is what other people think they should do, forcing themselves into the box of strategy within business, all of that really puts them in this space where they don't feel connection to what they're meant to say, what they're meant to bring forward. And when a generator is in touch with what they're meant to say, and they're in touch with their passion, they're in touch with not being co opted by other people and what they think other people want them to do, what a lot of them will do is they'll put on this mask of smallness, and they'll start to go, oh, I should energetically entangle with what I think they want from me, or what I should do based on
Mm.
this person. And so they're not being as bold as they need to be in business and actually speaking their truth. And what's interesting, as generators see more success, they actually make themselves smaller based on the success that they've seen instead of continuously evolving. So it's like the deconditioning that comes before success and the deconditioning that happens after success. Both of that is very, very, very important, because what a lot of generators will do, the second they try to recreate the success that they've seen, or they're always trying to follow the logical A plus B equals C, they're actually limiting themselves.
So it's essentially like they're getting distracted when they entertain those no's, when they're not following that full sacral yes, and then they can't hear that intuition, so then they get those entanglements where they make themselves small.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
How does that differ as like a sacral from someone who's gets like the shoulds in them as someone like me with like a projector open sacral? Like, because to me that sounds like also I can sometimes absorb shoulds because of that. So how is that different for a generator versus my type, like the open one?
Totally. And so let's go into projectors. It can happen, and this is the really interesting thing about conditioning. A lot of us have very similar societal conditioning, right? And
Mm.
so a projector might actually display in the low frequency of a generator, or a generator can use the high frequency expression of a projector if they're afraid of being seen to elevate into the next level. So for you being a projector, if there's shoulds and have tos, this can actually be from some of your open centers. And this can also be because you have a 5-1, right? And so the
Mm.
shoulds, there's going to be a lot more shoulds being received where people are projecting onto you, like, you should be this, or you should do this, or I've seen you do this, so you need to be this. So that's
Mm.
how the shoulds can come in a different way, where it's like actually your energy system is very, very sensitive, being self projected. And so you actually doing the energetic clearing of releasing any of those entanglements, that's going to be really important, because you can actually feel, and I'm just guessing and assuming here, but you can feel when people are trying to limit you, or feel when people are trying to put you in a box, because your energy system is sensitive. And so you kind of can have this reaction where it's like, either, oh, I'm feeling all the shoulds, or you use that to your advantage and you project out and create your own projection field.
Okay, so it's like a different kind of route
Yep.
from like where that conditioning is coming. Okay, that makes
Yep.
sense.
Exactly.
So generators are like that. I know you were talking about me being a self-projected. For projectors, does that mean the big thing is the being seen, like I said?
Yeah.
I
So
think you
there's
made
a
a post about it recently. That's why I'm
Yeah,
asking.
Exactly. There's a couple of huge things that comes in for projectors. It's being seen, because that's something that's super important for you as a projector, is like you need to be seen to actually be able to do your life's work here, because you see things so clearly, you see people so clearly, and in order for you to actually have the impact and effect you want to have, you need to be seen. But what a lot of projectors do is, first off, they self protect because of a fear of failure and a fear of success, two sides of the same coin, but also they're not seeing themselves. And so what happens is when they go out into the world, they're waiting for the invitation from this subtle energy of see me, see me, see me, see me, because I'm not self-validated, I'm not secure in self, I'm not certain in self. And so what happens is they're not being seen on a massive scale, and they're actually self-protecting from being seen. It's really interesting how being seen and the fear of success and the fear of failure, they all kind of tie into one. And so projectors' work is to actually deeply see self and to actually be deeply self-validated and really look at that fear of failure and where they've put success on a pedestal instead of bringing it into their being. Because as long as success is something that exists outside of you, as long as being seen is dependent on other people validating you instead of other people seeing what you already see within yourself, you're going to be in a lot of waiting energy. And that's why I don't love the whole wait for an invitation thing, because here's the thing, you actually aren't waiting in business. You're doing exactly what you said earlier, where you're speaking to the things that you see, you're speaking to your passions, you're speaking to the unique life experience that you've had, and people are coming in, and that's the invitation. Right? So your followers coming in, your people paying you, your people asking you questions, that's the invitation to start a business, speak the things you want to say. That's not actually where you're waiting for the invitation. But in order for a projector to step out in confidence doing that, they have to have a deep level of self-ownership and a deep level of seeing self. Because as long as there's these subtle frequencies of please see me, but please don't see me because I can't handle the expectations, but please see me, they're actually going to be energetically blocking from the impact they're here to have.
And I'm sure that gets even worse when they're then creating from the misaligned place of what other people or what they believe other people want from them. So then the way they're seeing themselves, all this entanglement of creating for someone else versus actually owning themselves. And then we get angry when we do things for them because they asked, but we shouldn't have been doing. The amount of times, like I remember years ago where people like, you should do this. And then I do it. And I'd be like, they said they wanted this. Why? And I was like going by that versus going by what, yeah. That is,
Yep. And it's so important for you being self-projected, because if anything pulls you away from feeling more you, it's a misaligned invitation. And what's really interesting is the discernment of what's an aligned invitation and what's a misaligned invitation. It doesn't actually come through when you're not deeply seeing self, because then you're like, oh, I'm just going to do what they think I should do, or do what they think I need to do, or I'm going to follow this person's strategy to the T, even though I don't even like what this person's doing, or I believe that I have to in order to be successful, which is a very fast track to burnout.
because you need that like internal reference point to like compare it to, like, does this resonate? But if you don't have that internal reference point, you're going to feel like you don't know.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. And that internal reference point really truly is seeing self and listening to authority.
Never heard someone explain projectors like this. I love it. Okay, Manny Gens.
Manny gens. So a lot of what applies to generators actually also applies to Manny gens. So all of the Manny gens listening, go and listen to what I said about actual generators, because that's really important. But Manny gens have this thing where they get so stuck in logic. They get so stuck in other people's limitations, the way that other people do things. And Manny gens really are very like multifaceted and very like, ooh, I like this thing and I like this thing and I like this thing. And they bring things together that literally don't make sense. Like whenever you talk to a Manny Gen and you look at the life experience that they've had, you're like, this doesn't make sense. When you bring together the things that Manny Gens bring in business, it it's always just like something you probably haven't seen before. And so a lot of Manny Gens actually make themselves small by trying to make logical sense of things, entangling with others instead of just going for it and letting the multifacetedness of their expression make sense to them. And then when they get it, when they understand it, when they're anchored into the power of it, other people get it too. And so Manny Gens really shut themselves down with what ifs. What if I'm too sporadic? What if this doesn't work? What if I fail? What if this isn't the way that other people do it? What if I'm judged for expansion? What if I'm judged for saying the things that I want to say? So a lot of the what ifs, when you're playing into negative what ifs, it's going to shut your sacral down, right? And so what they have to do is they have to start playing into what ifs that are actually in support of them and stop trying to make things make sense from a logical place, because then they just get themselves stuck. When they can break past the bounds of logic and actually allow themselves to do what they want to do in the way that they want to do it and speak to the things that they want to speak to, people get it. But the more they try to make it make sense and try to get to the point where they feel ready and get to the logical, like, okay, my brain gets this, they're actually not going to be able to move with their deepest power and their deepest alignment.
Oh, wow. Okay. That brought up a question for me. And it's kind of like a limitation. It's like the common one that Manny Gens have. You probably heard it, but I want to hear your perspective, because people say this to me when they're a Manny Gen. It's like, well, I can't be consistent because I'm a Manny Gen, so my energy is all over the place. Or like, I can't be focused on this thing in business because I got this idea and this, and I want to do this, and I want to do this. I want to hear your perspective on like that reason why they can't be consistent, the reason that they can't be consistent maybe in one avenue and aspect of business, because you're a Manny Gen and like Christy's consistent. Like she talks like, I don't know, guys. So yeah, what is your whole thing? I'm like, I can't because I'm a Manny Gen, so my energy is up and down and I lose like the motivation or the excitement for things and I'm on to the next shiny object.
Totally. And this is honestly like one of the really cool things that generators and manifesting generators go through is they go through what would be called generator lulls, where there is moments where they're actually in a deeper period of integration, where they're actually not going to be, oh my gosh, everything's so exciting, everything feels so new, everything feels so sparkly. And so when they're in a lull, a lot of generators want to give up and they want to just like, they go into this spiral of nothing matters, nothing's working, I'm not connected, and all of these things. A lot of Manny Gens will also do something similar where it's this energy of, I'm just going to quit. I'm just going to go a different direction. I'm just going to like pick something else. Oh, things are not working as fast as I want them to. Maybe if I do this. So, a lot of the reasons why Manny Gens can't tap into consistency is actually a deep level of buying into misalignment, because I have worked with so many Manny Gens who are deeply consistent, who are deeply focused, who are very multifaceted in their business or very focused on a singular thing within their business, and then have hobbies outside of their business. And so what I would say is the reason why this misalignment comes up is because Manny Gens they move very, very fast. And so they get so obsessed with seeing results move as fast as their energy system that the second they don't see a result immediately, they assume that something's wrong and they tuck tail and run, right? Or when they have a moment where they actually have to hold the energy and double down on mastery and double down on building a skill set and double down on speaking what they want to say without the necessitation of being so lit up by it. Because here's the truth, we're human. We're going to have moments where we're deeply connected to our work, and there's going to be moments where we're saying the things we know to say and we're deeply connected to something else, or we're going through a lull. And I see a lot of Manny Gens, they're actually moving from sporadic misalignment instead of deep inquisition of, if this was working, how would I feel? Is there any piece of me that's afraid of mastery? Is there any piece of me that's afraid of going deep in my work? Is there any piece of me that feels trapped by consistency? Because the idea that you're trapped by consistency is actually a lie. The reason why they have that fear is because of the conditioning that they've previously experienced, where they had to, because of society, they had to do jobs they didn't like. Their energy was being co-opted. So they bring that same fear of misalignment into their business, which keeps them from tapping into being consistent in content, being consistent in what they're bringing forward, when actually they're doing it for them first.
So this is like what's going on, and this is what to ask when like, all right, I launched this program. I'm not feeling excited anymore. Well, I guess I'm not talking about it anymore. It's like, well, no, it's probably like everything you just said. And so to
Yeah.
like go back and like sit with those things, ask yourself those things, because it's
Yeah.
probably that, not like, oh, I'm not like excited about it anymore because probably because no one signed up yet. I, mean, I don't know if you had 100 people in, like, would you still be excited? Right.
Totally. Yep,
Mm,
exactly. They get
okay.
it's so entangled with the externals, and so what happens is there will be moments in many people's businesses where they're growing and things are exciting and things are popping off and things are happening, but excitement, and you know this as somebody who does nervous system stuff, like excitement is not a sustainable frequency within our body and within our energy system 24/7. And so when gens and mani gens create this interesting entanglement that they have to be off the walls excited about every single thing that they do or it's not going to work, then what are they perpetuating in their reality? They start to panic anytime they get neutral, anytime they feel grounded, anytime they're taking action. And like, here's the thing, as a mani gen myself, I am lit up a lot of the time, but when I'm not lit up, I don't make it a problem. I reconnect to my sacral and I reconnect to who would I be if I was getting the results. If I am getting the results and it's feeling a little disconnected, I ask myself, is there something new I want to speak about in terms of this program? Is there a new lens coming through? Is there an upgraded conversation? And so those kinds of things actually allow me to be somebody who can create mastery in a world of a lot of sporadic movement from mani gens, because the idea that a mani gen can't be consistent is actually a lie, right? And so a mani gen will have to know the difference between actually it's time to double down versus, oh, this thing actually does need to evolve or does need to change. And the difference between those is a lot of these deeper questions around, am I self-sabotaging? Is there a fear of expansion here? Is there a fear of mastery here? Who would I be if I was seeing the results? And those deeper questions lead them to, ooh, actually, I'm meant to double down.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love this. I am now, anytime an MG client says this to me, I'm gonna be like, listen to this podcast episode. Go listen to Christy.
I love it. So good.
So I know you shared, like I was talking about at the beginning, this really like hot take on the will center. I had never like heard anyone speak about the will center before, especially in this way. And I think that's something we can like obviously apply to everyone here versus like the intricacies of everyone's design. So like, can you explain why the will center is important in business and how that applies to our business?
Yes. So the will center, honestly, every single client I have ever worked with, and this is the tricky thing about the will center. It actually is the only center that has three names. So when you look at the software, it may say will, ego, or heart center. It's all the same. And so the will center is, no matter what level of client I have, whether they're making nothing in their business or they're making 100K months, everything in between, whether they're defined or undefined, that is the center I work with the most, because a lot of the will center shadows, whether you're defined or undefined, are deeply going to impact the way that you show up within your business, right? And so if you have an undefined will center, which means it's not filled in, what's going to happen for a lot of undefined will center people is they're going to be in this space of proving. There's going to be a lot of this frequency of, am I enough? Am I not enough? What do I do in order to be enough? How do I prove that I'm worthy? How do I prove that I'm good enough at this? And there's a lot of comparison, right? And so the person who's in comparison, they're actually in the low frequency expression of an undefined will center, and they need to bring back power to their work, bring back power to their own perspective, and start to tune into the frequency of unique. Because the really cool thing is, when you're undefined and everything exists on a scale where it's like, oh, I'm good enough compared to, ooh, I'm better than this person, or ooh, I'm not as far as this person. They're always doing this scale. And so their worthiness is something that they struggle to tap into unless they're in comparison, which that's a sticky frequency to be in, because there's always somebody that you're quote unquote better than and somebody that you're quote unquote worse than, which that's not a frequency that is sustainable within business. So what undefined will will centers need to do is they need to tap into the frequency of unique, because unique just exists with an isness, where it takes away the
Mm.
scale and it just gets you into a space where it is enough because it is you, instead of the scale of comparison. And when undefined will centers actually show up in this frequency of unique, they stop overextending, they stop people pleasing, they
Mhm.
stop over delivering, they stop lowering their prices because they think that they're not good enough or not far enough along, and they actually can tune into what is aligned, which is really, really cool and really powerful.
Oh my God. I love how you said that this applies no matter where you're at, because I think sometimes people think like, oh, at a certain level that doesn't apply to me. And I'm like, no, you should probably think about this like no matter where you're at. Like it
Totally.
applies.
Yep,
Oh, I've never heard.
exactly.
Okay, so that was undefined. Then we have defined.
Yes, and defined will centers, this is really cool because you actually have like this sense of innate worthiness, right? And so, one of the really cool things that defined will centers are really here to do is they're really here to show up in this like, see me, I'm powerful, I'm the best at what I do. And it's this very strong and proud energy, right? Like, that's exactly it. And when you're undefined, you're still meant to show up in a powerful energy, but it's owning the uniqueness. When you're in this defined will center, what happens is you're really meant to just very confidently be in competition with self, where it's like, how do I do better than the version of me yesterday? When defined will centers get in competition with other people and they bring that scale in, it can actually be a little bit shadowy for them. They're meant to be competing with themselves, because if they're competing with others, there's still this level of comparison of good enough and not good enough, right? Which is something even the defined will center has to watch for. But a lot of defined will centers are actually in shadow around their defined will center, because in their conditioning that they received from others, they're pretty good at what they do. And so a lot of them have heard, hey, don't be so arrogant. Hey, I know you're good, but like dim yourself down for other people. Dim yourself down for your classmates. Dim yourself down for your coworkers. Oh, your boldness makes me uncomfortable. And so all of these defined will centers have gotten and received this conditioning. So when they want to show up in power in their business and really claim that they're the best at what they do, really claim that they're the one who is the go to within their industry, those voices play in the back of their head where they're like, ooh, if
Mhm.
I too confidently own this, I'm going to get in trouble. If I am bold at what I do, I'm going to trigger people. Oh, I'm going to make other people feel like not enough when I step into that power. And it's not because that's true, it's because of the conditioning that you've received. And oftentimes, when you see a defined will center in their power, you might trigger people, but you're going to expand everyone, right? And one of my sayings is, I'm either going to trigger you or expand you, but I'm still going to do me. And that's a very aligned phrase for the defined will center.
Okay, I love that you said it, like it's for the define, like competing with yourself, and that's kind of like healthy, because I think
Yep.
that can be a very like healthy thing, like a very healed aspect to like compete with yourself. I also see myself in that, even in aspects outside my business. Like I like to go to the gym, I like to lift heavier each time, like I like to compete with me and see how I've like
Yeah.
progressed, and like, oh, so that just even makes sense for me like outside of business. And I'm
Yes.
sure those that defined and undefined aspects apply to your business, but you can probably also see aspects of this of yourself in things that are like not business related too.
Yes, totally. And I know you're defined and I know I'm undefined. So one of the things I have to be very aware of is, where am I like overexerting because of proving or pressure? And you being defined, you actually have this more natural ability in the higher frequency expression to be like, oh, it's time to go for this. Oh, it's time to pull back and rest. Oh, it's time to up level again. Oh, it's time to pull back and rest. So you have this more natural propensity in the high frequency expression to know what's exactly aligned for you. When I was in the low frequency expression of my will center, I had to ask a lot of questions to get to that natural point where now I can tune into my own energy system and be like, oh, this is aligned for me. Oh, I'm owning the uniqueness of my work. Oh, I'm not playing stories of what is other people thinking of me or what is the energetic entanglements, or, oh, I need to do more, do more, do more in order to prove. And I can actually tune into alignment. But those are some of the differences in how they show up.
Is that because like as a defined, it's like closed versus undefined is like open? So the open will center has like more things it's absorbing and that's why?
Totally.
Okay.
So, and this is really cool, but I believe that defined and undefined or defined and undefined centers, let's just take it to a broader conversation, can be conditioned, but it's easier to receive deeper levels of conditioning in open because it is receiving, right? And so when you talk about like receiving, there's inconsistent energy there. And so I'm going to be receiving, oh, this conditioning and this conditioning of be small, or oh, you need to prove yourself, or oh, you need to compare yourself. But when you're defined, you actually have consistent energy flow to that center. And so you're actually more solid in that center. And that's one of your
Mhm.
natural strengths when you're in the high frequency expression. I have seen, based on people's conditioning, that even when they're defined, they can still be in the low frequency expression based on the conditioning they received growing up.
Okay. So is this also why, like, go correct me if I'm wrong, like an open head center might get like more noisy in their head
Yeah.
versus like a defined, you'll get noise, but the noise is from like conditioning versus receiving of energies outside of you.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And so defines, they're going to have like a more consistent way of thinking. They're going to have a more consistent way of kind of processing information and just having this connection to like, oh, this is my consistent way of how I approach like mental realms. Whereas undefined, they can have a lot swirling around where it's just like, oh, I'm receiving
Mm.
this and I have this idea and I have this thing and maybe I should do this and maybe I should do that. And they start to overthink. Now, being defined, you can start to overthink if you're not allowing yourself to actually listen to your thoughts and value your thoughts and express them in the way that you're meant to express them. Or if you're not, if you're going into a place of like, I'm dumb, or the things that I think of are stupid, or the things I want to pursue are not worth pursuing, where they're shutting themselves down, they'll show up in the low frequency expression.
Wow. I'm learning so much. I love this.
This is so cool.
Is there any more like if there is there a number two? Like we talked about Will Center. Is there a number two runner up, like big top thing apart from like the projector or your five line, like one of those little Christy intricacies that you kind of see that most people don't talk about that you're like, how are more people like not talking about this? Like this is such a big thing when it comes to human design. It may even be like a specific gate that you feel like for business is really like relevant, or I don't know.
Totally. And you know, one of the things that I really see, like, we could take this from a multifaceted conversation because I feel like a lot of people overthink in their business, and I feel like a lot of people move from
Mm,
pressure in their business, which that's both your pressure
mm,
centers, right? That's the head and that's the root. And so when we
okay.
think about this, a lot of people are actually consistently trying to move from those centers, from the overthinking and from the logic, or they're trying to move from this level of pressure where they're moving from their root center, whether it's defined or undefined. And I'm going to go into the nuance of the difference between those because when we think about like a defined root center, this really is a pressure center. And so the defined root, you actually have like this consistent kind of pressure coming through for you. But what a lot of defined roots do is they put a lot of pressure on themselves. And then this plays with the head center, whether it's defined or undefined, because both of these can show up in high and low frequencies where they start to overthink. So when you have a defined root, one of the most important things that you do is you actually start to tune into, is this pressure real? You tune into where you've subscribed to other people's rules on how long something should take. You start to tune into, is the things I'm doing actually important and actually things that I want to do? Or am I putting pressure on my results? Am I putting pressure on myself? If you're an undefined root, which I think you are, right? Okay, cool. And so within an undefined root, yeah, self projected. So with an undefined root, what's going to happen is you're going to absorb other people's energy, right? And so what can happen is you can absorb a lot of pressure from other people. So if you're around other people or you see other people doing things, you'll absorb that because you're not kind of creating your own pressure, you're absorbing the pressure. And then what can happen is it can turn into this very sporadic energy in business where it's like, if I can just check off all the things in the to-do list, I'll be okay. If I can get some sort of like amount of people in my program, then I'll be okay. It's like this looking for relief based on externals instead of tapping into this like grounded sense of like, is this pressure even mine? Is this pressure something that I've absorbed from other people? So for a lot of undefined roots, I'm like, get away from people, get out in nature, right? For a lot of defined roots, I'm like, you need to actually like jump on a mini trampoline for a second and get into a space where you've dispersed some of this pressure. So that's kind of how I really think that that center is very important in business and how to get more aligned with it. And you have to watch for how these centers play together. Because if you're in the low frequency of one of your centers, I know we talked about the will and the root. If you're in the low frequency of one of those, and then all of a sudden you have overthinking, you're going to go up to either a defined or a defined and ajna and head, or an undefined ajna and head, whatever combinations you have, or you may have your defined ajna without the defined head. You're going to start overthinking and trying to make decisions from the mind. This is why I think it's so cool to look at the centers, because then what happens is you have this awareness of, oh, I'm overthinking. Oh, I'm absorbing other people's pressure. Oh, I'm in the proving energy. And so as you start to gain awareness of the centers, what do you get to do? You get to come right back to, what is my strategy? What is my authority? And start to move from those places. So this was a really cool example, even in the talk we did today, around how you can actually like use these different, more nuanced pieces of human design to get back to the embodiment of the basics. And that's why the basics are like literally the most important thing for people, because when they go back to strategy and authority, they can nip that low frequency expression in the bud. They have the awareness of what it is, and then they can start moving from alignment, which is really cool, because one of the things I do believe, when somebody follows their strategy and authority, they start to transcend the limitations of logic. Because when we move from low frequency expressions, what happens is there's not a lot of energy in our aura. There's a lot of these energetic densities of shoulds, have tos, pressure, force, conditioning. And so what does it make us do? It makes us have to work really hard in our 3D reality for things to happen. And so we're not a clear channel. It takes us a really long time to manifest. And then we put a lot of effort into the things that we're creating. We work really hard. We hustle for them. And then what do? We see a 3D result, which really puts us into this continuum and this cycle of, oh, I have to try really hard in order for things to work. But when you align to your human design, all of a sudden, by following strategy and authority, you clear out these energetic densities within the aura. And so you're backed by energy, which means that you're no longer a 3D human pushing in the 3D reality. You're a 3D human backed by 5D energy, creating in the 3D reality. And all of a sudden, things happen faster. You transcend logic. You move at a speed and in a way that does not make sense for how other people move.
I am so obsessed with you in this conversation. I'm just like soaking on it. Like, I'm going to re-listen to this like 5 times. Just the way you can articulate, like, wow, like everything you just said. Wow, I'm gonna listen to this like 5 times. I'm gonna save it on my own like podcast thing and like listen to it at least every week. I'm gonna make notes.
Oh my God, thank you.
What you said, even about like the relief with an open root, that is like, I remember like searching for that relief. Like I needed that like that word is just, oh yeah, everything you just said. And even what you said about going back to your strategy and authority, like this is why I haven't, like, I don't know, memorized all my gates and whatever. Cause I feel like,
Yep.
you know, you don't need to know what gate 62 or what, well, I don't know if there's a gate 62, but you get what I mean. Like focus on like the strategy and authority and like this. And there's probably so much in there that you need to more deeply embody versus trying to intellectualize it and be like, well, this gate 62 or 5 or blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know.
Yes.
Like go back to your strategy and authority and like deepen that and look at those. And I can see even as you're talking, like, oh yeah, if I think about, you know, how I'm feeling and I just come back to the authority and the strategy, like you can move through it faster and you just shift back into alignment. And it can happen quite fast, that shift back into alignment. So if you are conscious, you take the awareness to the strategy and the authority and you bring that together and really getting to know those points. And I know for me, especially like really learning that self-projected, learning that like magnetic monopole, life changing. And like, I know I can identify that pressure's external. I know when I was, I was looking for relief there. Let's bring that back. Let's realign. Like, I don't know. I'm just confirming everything you're saying. And I just love you. And I'm obsessed. And like, of course, 5 line, like, I'm obsessed with you, like, in a
I
good way.
I love
But
it.
yeah.
I feel the exact same way about you. And I love how we're both 5'1s because I feel like this conversation, the way it lands for people is just going to be like, oh my God, this is revolutionary.
I could talk to you for hours. I feel like one day I'm gonna have to meet up with you in person because like I just feel like I could talk to you forever. I could keep talking to you for like 3 hours. We could be
I
here.
It's amazing.
But like I am respectful of your time and I feel like I'm gonna want to have you back for a consciousness conversation
Oh my
because
God.
I know just hearing you talk about everything you want to talk about consciousness, I just sit there and I'm just like, okay, I just keep talking. Like I just like I'm frothing. Like I guess maybe it's like one line to one line. Like your one line's talking, my one line's like, yes, yes, give me spiral dynamics, give me the colors, give me this. I'm like, yes, yes, let's go.
Oh my God, I love you.
So I'm just gonna put it in the ether. We'll have to have you back about consciousness because I feel like that's a whole different realm.
Oh, it is.
People are going to be obsessed with you and they're going to want to jump in your world. Where would you think, or where would you like to send people first? Or like, is there an intro to your world, or is there just like a, you know, you need to be like in this program, this is where to go, or yeah, like let them know where to find you, where they should be going, and where they can like learn this really good information besides just following you on Instagram, which you need to do because like I said, guys, I follow her and I implement. I'm like, every day you blow my mind with your content. I learn something so valuable about myself. But sorry, go let us know where we need to be in Christy's world.
Oh my God, I adore you. Thank you so much. So yeah, definitely follow my Instagram at Christy Avis. I also have a TikTok at Christy Avis where you can learn more general information. But if you're wanting to start in my world, I have some really incredible starting places for people wanting to understand their actual profiles, their human design lines. And I also have like specific programs for gens and mani gens. That's and that's a business program that really teaches you deep alignment as a gen or a mani gen in business to actually skyrocket past logic. I also have the projector frequency, which is a program for projectors to do the exact same, where we tune into lightness and we tune into power and we tune into removing all of the subconscious protection mechanisms from success, from failure, from being seen, and we actually allow you to step into the deepest level of power. We have more coming for manifestors and reflectors later, but we also have a program for everybody called Authority. And this is actually a course and it's self-led. And what it does is it teaches you basically the work we did here today, where it's you tuning into trusting your authority with absolute certainty. What this course does is it teaches you all of the individual authorities so you can tap into alignment within your authority. And then what we do is we go through this process of tuning into where you've been in overthinking, where you haven't been trusting your authority, where you can lean into not questioning your authority anymore and move with it with such a deep level of certainty that you're not the person who's wavering in your experience within your human design. Because what I see is the people who waver the most within their human design, they see the wavering in their 3D reality. They see money going up and down. They see their confidence going up and down. They see clients coming in and then huge stagnations and the people coming in and no longer signing clients. And it's this very back and forth. When you anchor into solidity within your authority, it reflects in your 3D reality with consistent power within you that attracts money and clients. So that's a really great place to start that course. And other than that, follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, and I can assume, but with the authority, like you don't go into misalignment because when your authority is solid, you don't like absorb the things you're not to. Like I feel like that is like you need to master your authority. Like that should be like a foundational master your authority, your
Yep.
unique one. Okay.
Exactly. And most people are trying to trust their authority instead of just being their authority. And that's really what it helps you do, because that's where you move past logic and you move past other people's limitations, which is really cool because a lot of people are very deeply conditioned in the opposite of what they're trying to create, where they're subscribed to logic, where they're subscribed to societal conditioning. And a lot of the people in like my world and your world, we're here to claim big things like more money, more impact, more clients, more freedom, more success. Like it's so powerful.
Oh, I love this and I love you. And I think, you know, one last thing I want to add, because I always talk about like relaxing your way to wealth and like ease and human design, 100% is a way to bring in more ease when you learn about like master your authority, you're this, you're that. So like, I just
Truly.
know everyone I know is going to want this because like it's going to help with ease. So like master your human design.
Exactly. It's so powerful. It's so related to ease. And like without human design, my life before was like so hard with human design. Now I actually find ease and expansion, which I know you teach a lot as well, because when you talk about the nervous system, you're not just like, oh, let's stay in one place. You're like, let's continue to expand capacity for more money, for more wealth, for more pleasure. And so in expansion, if you don't know how to bring ease into expansion, you're going to stay in a state of sameness while saying you want more, but you're going to be subconsciously protecting from that more.
I just had a brilliant idea that I'm going to talk to you about off camera. But I just saw something flash before my eyes and I had a full like, whoa, that's big.
I'm so excited.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. Thank you so much. We're going to have all of Christy's links down below, everything you need to find her. Save this episode, come back to it. I know I'm going to come back to it many, many times. Thank you so much, Christy, for sharing all of your wisdom, your magic, your uniqueness, for being fully expressed in your human design and alignment.
Thank you so much. It's been such an honor being here.